Welcome back to Sports Radio 95.9 The Fan. And right now here on the Club 52 hotline to talk a little NBA hoops, good friend of mine, Dan Favale with the Bleacher Report. Yeah, we're going to go around the horn here on an early season for NBA basketball. Dan, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Hey, are we like a month in? Did this happen? It's kind of like just blurred because I know I just said early season. Are we a month in? How did that happen?
I don't know how it happened. I think we blinked, and that's how it happened.
It's a good point, and I got to start with the King, Mr. King James, who his team really hasn't been playing well. I know last night they beat the Magic, but what's going on with this team? Is it just growing pains, trying to learn how to play together?
Yeah, it's definitely growing pains, and you always need a grace period when putting all these superstars together, all the sacrifices that have to be made, all the tactical adjustments. And I think one of the things that's been underplayed to date is the fact that Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving aren't at the same point in their careers as Bosh and Wade were. I mean, those three in Miami, they picked where they wanted to go, and this was basically their decision. Kyrie Irving re-signed with the Cavs, signed off his rookie extension, and all of a sudden LeBron comes to town. And then you have LeBron recruiting Love to come to Cleveland, who's still younger than Wade and Bosh were then. And did he make this decision from the get-go like they did? No, it was his own volition that he made it, but it was still sort of something that would spur the moment. So those things have to be worked out. There's more of a mindset transition that needs to take place in Cleveland. And finally, you also have the defense is awful. They don't have a viable rim protector, and that's going to haunt them as the season wears on, probably into the playoffs. Their offense, in the end, should be good enough to help them stay near the top of the Eastern Conference, but they do need to make some adjustments in the defensive end, and I think can only be fixed with personnel acquisition. So I would look for them to make some moves to sort of balance out the roster moving forward.
We're here with Dan Favale with the Bleacher Report, covers the NBA out of the NYC. And, I made this point last Friday where, and I know I cover the Heat here in Florida, I like it better when LeBron's the bad guy on the superstar, Miami Heat team. I think it's sexier for the NBA. This story, it's great and it makes you feel good like a Disney movie, but it's not sexy. I need him to be evil LeBron. Is that okay, Dan?
Hey, to each their own. I think there's more more joy comes out of seeing him fail, I guess, so to speak, for some people, because it sort of means more parity in the Eastern Conference. If you just look, the Heat have dominated that conference for the last 4 years, and we sort of thought the Cavs were going to do the same thing coming into this year, but their struggles, along with the Bulls' injuries, have sort of opened up the door for everyone else, and we really haven't seen that type of parity in nearly a half a decade, and the Western Conference and their fans, they get spoiled because everyone's so good, but the East is just a different animal, and I guess, from my point of view anyway, the only way I'll really justify enjoying what's happening to LeBron and the Cavaliers is that it's better for the competition throughout the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I want you to know I was covering up Magic Heat last Saturday night at the Amway Center. And Chris Bosh, my God, he had about 30-plus points, 10 rebounds. He was the leader of the team. I was in shock. I was like, where was this the last 2 years for the Heat? I still don't get it, Dan. You got to explain to me. Where was this Bosh last year, even in the finals? Now he's the man for the Heat. Why didn't I see this before from him?
Well, the Heat, by design, sort of made him devolve, if we want to use that word, into a spot-up shooter who wasn't really looking for his own shot. Now we sort of see what he can do as the primary offensive option when he's being asked to mix his offensive rapport. You see him taking some spot-up jumpers. You see him taking the ball to the basket. You see him posting up. And I do think he's lived on the perimeter a little too much this season, especially since Dwayne Wade has been out, and I think you can sort of see how much of an impact Wade still has on the shots that Bosh is going to get. But you're seeing a more aggressive Bosh because that's the design now. That wasn't the design last year. You had LeBron James and Dwayne Wade when he was healthy, and when Dwayne Wade wasn't there, it was just this steady dose of driving kicks where Bosh is sitting on the perimeter waiting to catch and shoot threes or mid-range jumpers. So it's all tactical in my opinion. This is the player he could have been with them, but you do have to make adjustments and do what's best for the team when you have LeBron James on the roster, and that's what we're doing since 2010.
We're here with Dan Favale on the Club 52 hotline talking NBA basketball. He's with Bleacher Report. Does Dwayne Wade still play basketball? I know Rose gets destroyed, but what does Wade do exactly? Is he a basketball player, Dan?
I mean, I think he's still a basketball player, but in all seriousness, it's never been about his ability to play basketball, even during the worst of times. It's always been about his availability. And he was doing so much this season, and it was sort of nice to see the Heat rolling, seeing them survive without LeBron, but you were always just waiting for that moment when he would go down because you know it's going to happen. It's going to happen every year. He's never played in a full 82 games. I believe he missed an average of 16 games a season or more over the last 4 years while he was with LeBron and Bosh. And this is really their big test right now is can they survive without him because it means more without LeBron James. Even LeBron was sort of complaining about Dwayne Wade's maintenance program last year, and you saw how the Heat's offense not necessarily suffered. I believe they're actually better without him on the floor, but you saw how much of the onus was put on one player in LeBron. And Chris Bosh isn't that guy. He can't be the playmaker. He can't run the offense or bring the ball up the court. So that's going to be huge for the Heat moving forward if he can't stay healthy. And how many more games is he going to miss? Because once he comes back, he's still going to miss games again. It's just the nature of his body and his age and the situation. So again, Wade's a great basketball player, but he can't be a number one option now. He might not even be able to be a reliable sidekick because this is a guy who may need to miss 20, 25, 30 games a year.
I wish I had his contract. It'd be awesome to have that many days off. Like, oh, yeah, Dan, he's not coming in today. Oh, don't worry about it. His availability will be better on Friday. That's so funny. What about the Chicago Bulls? Derrick Rose plays. He doesn't play. I just give up after a while. But they keep winning basketball games, and they're very competitive. What is your take on how the Bulls have played so far?
They've played great overall, and you see this offensive and defensive balance, which hasn't been there in years, since I think Derrick Rose was MVP in 2010, 2011. But injuries for this team, man, I'm just watching it. You see Taj Gibson go down. You see Pau Gasol go down. You know Derrick Rose is hurting. You wonder, is Joakim Noah really only playing on one foot, perhaps? And it just threatens to derail their entire season. They really need Rose more than anyone to sort of be healthy, and Gibson as well, because you don't expect him to get injured, but rest is sort of going to have to be a reality for Pau Gasol at his age, and he's a big part of their offense. So you need Derrick Rose to be on the floor. You can't expect Jimmy Butler to set the world on fire for the entire season. And we've seen them struggle without Derrick Rose, too. Their offense just doesn't look as good without that dominant point guard. And again, this might be what they have to do this year. Maybe it's Rose in and out of the lineup so that he can get his legs back under him. But if they really want to contend this year, they need Derrick Rose to make consistent contributions, and you don't want to see him missing 5 games at a time at separate points in the season, because that starts to add up. 20, 25 games is a lot of games to play without Derrick Rose. And while it's the Eastern Conference, we sort of saw them struggle a little bit when Pau Gasol was out and everything along those lines. So the Bulls have the talent, but do they have the health? And that's going to be the question that follows them around all year.
Okay, how about this? Derrick Rose plays 10 minutes a night, and the Bulls just squeak into the playoffs, and then they get ready for the playoffs. How about just do that, and then you keep him healthy for spring? Because isn't that really the point of all this?
It is and it isn't. Can you really expect him to play at a high level in the playoffs if he's only been playing 10 minutes a night or something like that? You want to see him get those minutes under him. You want to see him play back-to-back so that he's ready for the bruising defenses that he'll face in the playoffs. And you don't just want to throw him and sort of do baptism by fire in the postseason. That's what the regular season is for. And I always thought this was going to be sort of a transition year for him. Statistically, could he work on his jumper? Would his shooting percentages be the same? Could he score as much, pass as much? But the big factor has always been, can he actually play? And you like the fact that it's being deemed not serious, everything that's going on, but you want to see Rose play, and you want to see him continue playing. You don't just want to see these short bursts of performances and availability. Do you really want to see this 20-something-year-old kid reduced to Dwayne Wade status at this stage of his career? Absolutely not. And so the rest of the year is all about, more than it is Rose's transition statistically, it's about his body and how it responds to the rigors of a regular NBA schedule. So it's something to follow, and it's impossible to predict at this point because you have no idea what's going to happen. I think we've all thought he's been back on multiple occasions, only to see him go down again. It's just one of those things that we have to wait and see.
Dan, you were talking earlier in our conversation about the parity of the Eastern Conference, and LeBron on the Cavs opens up for other teams. Could you actually see the primary team I cover, the Orlando Magic, where the East is so bad that they can maybe squeak into the 8th seed with about 34 wins? Could you actually see that happening?
As sad as it is to say yes, absolutely yes. The Eastern Conference is that bad. And if they're going to win 34 games, that's a 41% victory rate. Right now, the 8th seed, which is the Pacers, has about a 43% victory rate. So that's not really that far off. And really the only thing you have to look at is the Philadelphia 76ers have started the season 0-14, and they're only 6 games back of the final playoff spot. So there's really, that's all you need to say at this point. And the Magic are right there. The Brooklyn Nets are right there. The Boston Celtics are right there. Somehow the Knicks and Charlotte Hornets, who are 4-11, are both right there. So you can't count anybody out in the Eastern Conference. It's wacky. It's wild. It's ugly. Part of me loves it. The other part of me resents it. It's just craziness. So, no, I wouldn't write off the Magic at all at this point.
All right. Here's the last one. Who's the best team in the Western Conference right now going into December?
I'm gonna pick the Golden State Warriors, and I take a lot of crap on social media and in my articles because people think I resent the Grizzlies, and I really like the way the Grizzlies play, and they've always been a team that I think can beat anybody, even over the course of a 7-game series. I just don't think their offensive model, especially now, is sustainable. They have, I think, a top 6 offense right now. They're shooting pretty much no threes and a bunch of long twos, and Marc Gasol is doing everything. His usage rate is through the roof. It's higher than Mike Conley's. I don't see that being sustainable on the offensive end. I can totally see them being right there, but the Warriors are on a different plane with their balance on offense and defense. They can sustain what they're doing right now. You look at other teams across the board. Houston and Portland have depth issues. Dallas, I don't know how they're playing so well right now, with the exception of last night. I've always thought they were going to have depth issues. The Clippers are a train wreck defensively. The only team that I really see as a threat to the Warriors at this point, a real threat, is the Spurs once they get going. But I don't know how you pick any other team besides the Warriors at this point, and that's including the Grizzlies.
Great stuff. Dan Favale with the Bleacher Report covers the NBA. Dan, thank you so much for coming on. Have a nice holiday with your family, and I hope I can get you on again.
Will do. Thanks. Take care, Mark. Have a good holiday.